Hey y'all, I'm Matt Herrmann, and just want to thank everyone for showing up on a Sunday if you're here. And I also want to thank big shout out to Geneva for running all the panels and in the back behind the screens, behind the scenes. She's doing a lot here. Uh, so yeah, I got a few things I'd like to talk about. Just introduce the my two series that I'm currently working on, and depending on how many questions, if there's any questions, I will just start going into other topics like some of my favorite video games or elements of games that I like that I incorporate into my stories. I'll probably also talk about the books I'm currently reading if need some filler time there. I see Jake Stratman says he's taking over. Hi, Maria. Hi, Yez. And I see Joe says no thank you for the takeover. I'm not sure what that means. If you want to clarify, or if you're not, if you're leaving the takeover, that's cool too. So yeah, so I'll just jump in a little bit about myself as an author. So I haven't published any stories yet in the lit RPG genre. I started back in 2019 writing a thriller series that took place in Colombia, like the country Colombia, and it was like a spy action thriller kind of series. I wrote 4 books and published the first 2. I never published the other 2. I've currently taken them down from Amazon, but in the future, I would like to publish those again because they were really fun to write, and I actually got them edited and covers made for them. So, kind of want to put them out into the world eventually. But after that, I started dabbling in urban fantasy and published a co-written series in urban fantasy. And then now, ever since then, I started reading lit RPG. Like I kind of found out about this genre that I didn't know existed. So a funny story about how I found lit RPG. I was on an ARC team for a new author, and an ARC team is basically an advanced reader team. So you read the story before it gets published, and then you leave like reviews when the book comes out to like boost visibility. And this book, like, it wasn't explicitly stated that it took place in a video game, but they had the characters had levels, and they could see like characters' names above their heads and stuff. And it really reminded me of like Final Fantasy and Fallout for some reason. And I just never had seen that done before. So that was 2020, I believe. And right now, that's pretty much all I read. I do like reading other genres every now and then, just to kind of keep everything fresh, new ideas. So yeah. So now I'll start talking about my series real quick, unless anyone has any questions. So my first series that I'm working on, the working title is called Monster Tamer Academy. That is subject to change. I'm co-writing it with Robin Wiman. And basically the premise is Pokemon meets Iron Prince. So the world is populated by these wild monsters that they kind of, the more wild monsters there are in the environment, the more chaotic and like wild the land becomes, just because of the so monsters have access to magic, but humans don't have access. So humans are able to bond with a monster, and then that unlocks magic for the users, which are called tamers. and they tame monsters to reduce the ambient like chaos field in the wilds that surround the towns, and it's kind of like how they contribute to the world and like make it a safer place. And also they so the wild monsters, once they're tamed, they kind of are integrated into human society. So like farmers may need monsters to like help plow the fields or to help collect water like down by the streams. And I've been asked why the monsters have to be tamed instead, like why can't they just go out and kill the monsters if they're that dangerous? And the reason is because since monsters are connected to like the one source of magic in this world, if a monster dies, they basically explode into like a big energy field of like raw magic. So it's very destructive. It causes the environment to change even worse. Like the wilds that surround the civilization, they grow even wilder and like more dangerous. And the Iron Prince aspect of it is when the tamers bond with monsters, their the strength of their like human monster bond, the stronger that gets, the more powerful they become. So there's power tiers. Goes on a range of like extremely weak to very weak to medium to strong to very strong to extremely strong, and then like in X bond, like that's the highest, like the max bond rating. So that's kind of how the leveling system works up. The monsters can evolve as their bond rating evolve, or as they reach like a new like power tier. Like if they're going from strong to very strong, there's a good chance that a tamer's bonded monster will evolve. So that's basically okay. Joe asks, bond multiple monsters or is it just one? So when a tamer bonds a monster, their bond rating is usually weak, so it's below the medium. So it's usually very weak or exceptionally weak bond, because the humans and the monsters, like they're not acclimated to each other yet naturally. So you kind of got to build that bond up. But once a tamer reaches a higher level of like a higher power tier, so say they're like they reach, I believe it's strong or very strong bond ranking, that's when they can actually bond a tertiary monster. They can form a tertiary monster bond, and it's not as strong as their primary monster bond, but they can bond multiple ones. Usually 2 or 3 is the max once you get to the higher topped out range. So it's not like Pokemon where you can just collect, or you just catch as many as you can. It's more there's more of like a relationship building between the humans and the monsters. Yes, yeah, Robin Wiman, he's really cool. Actually get to hang out with him sometimes at conventions and conferences, and yeah, he's cool. He's got some good book series out too that are interesting. All right, Kyle says, you're making it sound a bit like Pokemon. Did that have an effect on you while writing this series? A little bit, yeah. So I was big into Pokemon the first 2 generations, and I really haven't followed it since. It's like the first 150 monsters, and then the next iteration. It is an influence, and I didn't want to like copy the whole idea of Pokemon, like, because to me, like Pokemon will be this story that kind of like started this whole like like the genre of like catching monsters. I'm sure it existed a lot before then, but for me, that's like my first exposure to that kind of story idea. So yeah, it was an influence. I believe now there's probably over like 1,000 Pokemon. So if I did delve back into it, I'd probably be amazed by all the cool monsters that are out there nowadays. And yeah, I did want to focus on the bond. Like I guess in like the original Pokemon series, Pikachu was I think Ash's like his main Pokemon, and I'm assuming like Pikachu stayed his like bud, like his go-to primary Pokemon kind of. So let's see. It looks like there was a comment from Maria earlier. So definitely not something you'd want to melee for the killing blow. Yeah, absolutely. So that actually brings up another cool aspect of my story world. The so there's a tamer academy, a monster tamer academy, and it's basically exactly what it sounds like. A kind of like civilization has been threatened by like the wild monster surges, and the tamers they tame the monsters because if you like would go for the killing blow, the like the raw ambient energy would go shooting out into the wilds and make the wilds even more dangerous, and like it'd be worse for humanity overall. There's a rival faction of people in this world called the Domineers. Uh, so like the tamers, they kind of like treat their monsters as respect. Like they kind of like see them as you'd see like your pet dog. Like they're kind of part of the family. But for these the Domineers, and they actually have a Domineer Institute, so it's like a rival academy basically, and they rule with like authority and like just sheer brutality. So they don't kill their own monsters, but they'll use like whips, or like they'll condition their monsters to be more aggressive, and they actually can be more of a problem than the actual wild monsters in the wilds that surround the towns. And like if you're not bonded to a monster, you're basically called a civilian, and you basically live your life in fear. Like if you step outside your city gates, you could like get eaten by a wild monster. And the Domineers, their aspect is they will just go out into the wilds and they'll like just wipe out monsters, uh, which will release the raw energy explosions. They don't really care about that. They're all about the quick gains, and the general public. Like a lot of people are kind of torn besides which side they want to side with, because it seems like the tamers are the good guys because they're like patrolling the towns and trying to maintain that positive uh, appearance, while the Domineers they sell themselves as the tough guys that go out and just like kill the wild monsters, which uh, is a lot of source of conflict in this world, just because of the because actually like and they'll even actually like you can absorb some of the raw energy that's released from explosions to an extent to like gain stronger, but it's almost a like a drug, kind of like where you kind of like you get this high off the adrenaline of the raw energy surge, and it can kind of like mess with your mind and like turn you into like crazy berserkers. Uh, that's not like book one, but that could be later on in the series when things escalate more so. Joe said, got some Codex of Alera vibes to it. I'm not familiar with that, but if you say so, then I might have to check that out just to kind of see the similarities and see if I can subvert some of the tropes and however plot points they have going for them. Oh, by Jim Butcher. Okay, gotcha. I know it sounded kind of familiar. I'm just familiar with his main series. Okay, so Jake has a really good question that I did incorporate. Kind of this was an aspect that I thought about whenever I was in the planning stages. So in Pokemon, the monsters don't really die; they faint since it's child friendly. Is this meant to be a more gruesome story with monster character death? So the story isn't that gritty or gruesome. Like there's not, to be honest, there isn't much death in it. The generally, like, so every wild monster has an affinity shield. So like magic in this world is called affinity. It's basically like 6 elements. And when tamers or domineers are out in the wilds fighting these wild monsters, instead of like physically connecting with or magically attacking the wild monster, this basically a force field, energy force field appears around the wild monster, and that energy affinity shield or force field absorbs the brunt of the attacks. So before you can actually tame a monster or kill them, if you're a domineer, would be to shatter that affinity shield just by attacking. So I suppose it's kind of like in Pokemon. From what I remember, you say you run across a wild Rattata, or that's a pretty weak example. A Scyther. Say you come across a Scyther out in the tall grass somewhere, and if you throw a Pokeball at it right away, your chances of successfully catching it is basically zero, from my understanding, or from what I recall, because at first you have to weaken their health a little bit. Like you don't want to like kill them or make them faint, but you have to like wear them out a little bit with battle, and then when you throw the Pokeball, you have a better chance of catching it. So that's effectively what the affinity shields do. You have to break the affinity shield, and then the monster is in a more weakened state, and then the tamer can approach more easily, and they calm them with like a calming touch. Usually it's touch based, where they can tame the monster, and they do have affinity stones that tamers wear on their waist. And it's kind of like a magical artifact that houses the monsters that they tame in the wilds, like short-term basis. So it's kind of like a Pokeball, but it's called Affinity Stone. And then the tamers will deposit the tamed monsters to the research division that the tamers have, just to so humans can further their studies in monsters and kind of get a better feel for what's going on in the world. So yeah, thanks for that question. Yeah, it's very PG-13ish. I do examine a lot of themes of like kind of like betrayal and loyalty, and there's kind of always a sense of like who can the main character really trust, because he's just a guy. He's like an 18-year-old boy, and it soon becomes clear that he's kind of like the chosen one. Like he'll have different abilities that he'll be able to gain, and different factions within like the academy and even elsewhere kind of have plans for him. So he has to kind of navigate the like what he's how he wants to see his destiny take off, especially with other people trying to exact their influence on him. Yeah, so if anyone else has any more questions about that series, just pop them in the chat. If not, I'll go shoot into my other series that I'm working on. It's a standalone series that I will be releasing on Royal Road probably in January, because I haven't really gotten much writing done yet. So it's called Dave the Trekker, and it's an isekai story. So there's this fantasy world with game-like mechanics, and a sorceress has cast a decay spell on the world. So the world, in like all of its man-made materials, are rapidly decaying. So swords, armor, houses, food kettles, everything like continues to decay or degrade at a rapid pace until like they just turn to ash, and just like it's really rough life. People are constantly trying to find ways of surviving with like limited resources. And the main character is from Earth. He's a research and development guy at an outdoor gear company. So he designs outdoor gear. He loves the idea of the outdoors, but he's so he doesn't like that there's no AC in outdoors. There's bugs outdoors. There's poison ivy outdoors. So he's kind of stuck in this. He likes the outdoors, but he's kind of like he can't get out there himself or whatever. And he's actually portaled to this fantasy world. And in this fantasy world, the heroes are portaled from other worlds, and they're called trekkers because they have to trek from like this small, like middle of nowhere to like halfway across the world to reach the sorceress and try to like stop her from basically destroying the world, because there's like a decay meter that is what if the decay meter, I'm not sure that's what it's going to be called, but if that reaches 100%, basically humanity's doomed on that world. It's just irreversible at that point. So basically his special ability, and all the trekkers before him have died like pretty quickly because their special abilities related to the previous world just didn't work too well. But his special ability is he's able to magically create items from raw materials. So he can create a spear really quickly from like a stick and a stone. He doesn't have to like he doesn't have to like physically put them together. His mind is able to just like see blueprints throughout the environment and magically create items. He can also repair items. So like a funny scene that I'm envisioning, I haven't written it yet, but so there's some soldiers from the kingdom that existed in this land, and they're trying to like, they have this porcupine cornered, and it's like this porcupine monster has quills, and they're starving. They want to get this porcupine, but they don't have any weapons. Like this level 1 porcupine monster, they can't kill it because they don't have any weapons. And basically in this world, people can't level up because their weapons fall apart, their armor falls apart. Smiths can't do any smithing because their smithing materials break apart before they can even repair stuff. So basically this guy, Dave's his name, he's the worst hero that could have been brought to this land, but his special ability is perfect for giving people a chance at surviving and hopefully rebelling against the sorceress. And just kind of getting low on time, I just want to mention the side characters in Dave the Trekker. So what Dave really needs is like a guide, because he's like lost in this place. He's out of his element at first, and but what he gets as his sidekicks are a talking radish. So there's these radish people. They're like really small. They can hop around on their roots if they want to, but they're kind of like small, so they like kind of do their own things. But this talking radish, he's got ADHD, and he's an assassin class. He's not that ineffective of an assassin because he likes talking, and his daggers keep degrading so quickly. He's not much help. And his other sidekick is a goth girl that is a really powerful lightning mage, but she can't cast lightning magic because her magic wands or rods keep degrading. So And also her deal is she kind of just basically wants to die. Like she's given up hope. So she's just like they're the worst possible sidekicks Dave could receive, but they will help him. They'll challenge him in different ways to persevere. And I actually do have I use Midjourney to create some images of the main characters, not to use in any promotion, but just as a reference point for me. I'll go ahead and show those real quick. So, and again, these are just like reference points. This is what the characters actually look like that I see in my head. But so we have Dave right here. He's just kind of like this scared, horrified looking dude in a backpack. Then we have the radish sidekick. Then we have the goth girl who's the mage. And then we have her bear companion down here. So that's kind of like a look behind the scenes of my process. I just started printing out and generating reference images pretty recently with the book 2 of my Monster Tamer series and the Dave the Trekker series that I'm trying to work on. I find that it helps me stay enthusiastic about what I'm writing. So that's cool for me to, when you have a cool picture, it's like, okay, this is why I'm writing this story. Thanks, Kyle. And then Jake asks, regarding the item decay, what's the typical timeline for this? Does a sword go from 100% to 0% in an hour, a day, a week? That's an excellent question that I haven't actually put it down in concrete, how I want to do that, the decay rate. I know the higher the overall decay rate percentage, the quicker it will, items will decay. So once Dave starts kicking some bad guys, some of the minions of the sorceress, and starts reclaiming some land, then that'll start to go down, and then there'll obviously be more pushback to on the sorceress's side. So yeah, the actual answer is I'm not 100% sure yet. And the main character, his abilities of creating and repairing items, that will increase too as he levels up, and that'll increase the duration of the items. So, and like each item will have like a kind of like a quality rating. So like fragile to stable to strong, and the sorceress will actually have access to unbreakable objects, which is kind of like S tier or legendary tier equipment or items. So yeah, so we're running really close to time. I do have I don't have any links where you guys can follow me really, except for Royal Road. There's my profile. Again, I don't have anything written on Dave the Trekker yet, but you could go ahead and follow me if you're interested in it and get notified when I start releasing those chapters. Yeah, and I'm really looking forward to putting that project out on the side, just to get the back and forth with the readers if people find that they like it, and I'm able to get some exposure and traction on that series. Kyle says I'll be checking this out very soon. So thanks, Kyle. So it looks like I got about a minute left. Just want to thank everyone for taking the time to watch. Thanks, Joe and Jake, for the comments and the questions. And Maria, thank you for your comment too earlier. And yeah, you're welcome. Again, thanks for listening. Hope everyone enjoys their Sunday, and hopefully my voice is okay. I was at a wedding last night, and like when you're at a concert and you're like yelling, and it's like you have to yell over the music, so it kind of feels like throat's a little hoarse. So hopefully that wasn't an issue and you guys could hear me all right. So yeah, thanks again, and have a good rest of your Sunday, guys.